curious, conversational. Have you ever felt a sudden surge of intense envy toward a friend, right alongside genuine compassion for them? It's a strangely common experience, holding two entirely contradictory emotions in your mind at the exact same time. One moment, you are operating from a place of quiet hope, and the next, a minor inconvenience sends you spiraling into sudden rage. These rapid shifts create a deep, exhausting psychological friction. The weight of these competing impulses can make it feel as though you are actively at war with yourself, forced to host a battle between different versions of who you are. Humans have experienced this friction long before the advent of modern therapy. Historically, we have turned to parables to personify these internal struggles, giving a visible shape to a conflict that is otherwise invisible. There is a well-known story about an old Cherokee elder speaking to his grandson. He tells the boy about a terrible fight raging inside of him. One participant is an evil wolf, a creature built entirely out of anger, greed, arrogance, and sorrow. The opponent is a good wolf, one filled with joy, peace, empathy, and courage. The grandson thinks about this fierce internal battle for a moment, looks at the elder, and asks, which wolf will win? The elder gives a simple, profound answer: the one you feed. It is an evocative image, but it raises a practical question. What does feeding an emotion actually require in the real world? And more importantly, what happens to the wolf we choose to starve? While the exact origins of this story are debated, it has become a staple of modern media. It appears in film scripts, television series, and motivational talks because it offers a clear way to visualize emotional intelligence. The reason it resonates so widely is that feeding corresponds to the psychological mechanism of directed attention. What you focus on, you strengthen. This flowchart illustrates exactly how that mechanism works. When you experience a trigger and choose to indulge a darker emotion, like dwelling on a perceived slight, your brain reinforces that neural pathway. The initial feeling of resentment loops back into a destructive behavioral pattern, growing thicker and harder to break with every cycle. Conversely, when you actively redirect that attention toward positive thinking or compassion, you interrupt the negative cycle. As you practice this positive intervention, the destructive loop breaks, eventually stabilizing into a steady, cultivated state of peace. This parable remains popular because it gives us actionable agency. It suggests we aren't helpless victims of our moods. We can control the switchboard of our own neurological loops. However, there is a variation of the story that warns against taking the elder's advice to an extreme. It highlights the danger of trying to starve one wolf out of existence. In clinical terms, this starvation strategy is known as emotional suppression. It happens when we refuse to acknowledge certain feelings, attempting to push parts of our own personality into the dark. When you refuse to process natural emotions, they don't simply vanish. Unacknowledged sorrow, for instance, often sinks below the surface, silently calcifying until it manifests as clinical depression. Suppressed emotions are highly volatile. Ignoring genuine anger day after day builds pressure without an outlet, practically guaranteeing the eventual reaction will be explosive. Violently repressing our darker impulses doesn't eliminate them. It merely removes our control over when and how they strike, leading to internal imbalance. If starvation is dangerous, the objective shifts. The goal is no longer to execute the dark wolf, but to learn how to tame it. This scale represents integration. Acknowledging dark and light elements as permanent fixtures is required to achieve suspended equilibrium. In practice, you observe a spark of jealousy and keep it clearly contained. You recognize it, but choose not to feed it. True emotional maturity moves us away from a state of exhausting internal warfare and settles us into a steady, calm internal awareness. The Two Wolves provides a framework for self-observation. It moves the focus away from a binary judgment of character and places it on the active management of our internal landscape. It highlights the daily power we hold in choosing which specific emotions we nurture into tangible actions in the real world. This active choice only works when it is paired with a healthy, non-judgmental awareness of our darker impulses. We have to see the whole picture to manage it. By mastering this balance, Acknowledging the dark while consciously feeding the light, we aren't just reacting to our instincts. We ultimately hold the pen that dictates our own character and the course of our lives.